If I could only figure out how to get my team motivated.
We are never going to get this project done on time.
Oh my God, my payroll numbers are insane. Why are we having all this overtime?
Do you have these or similar employee problems? Do you feel like some of your employees are just there for a paycheck? Tired of recruiting, interviewing, onboarding, and training just to find out you must do it all over again? Then it's time for you to find out how to have outrageously awesome employees. Sit back, buckle up, and get ready because we're about to drop a knowledge bomb on you. Please welcome to the mic the host of the show, the man who puts the human in human resources, the 007 of team building, the emperor of employee engagement, Randy Starr.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of How to Have Outrageously Awesome Employees. Today our special guest, Mary Varela-Spooner. She works with Lorien Health Services as a regional human resources director. Good afternoon, and how are you today, Mary?
I'm well, thank you.
Awesome. So regional already tells us that you have a pretty large responsibility. But before we get into anything, I like to kind of start off and let everybody get a feel for you and get to know you. So if you could tell us a little bit about your background, what you've done, where you've worked, that type of stuff, that would help everyone a lot.
Okay. Well, I started in human resources while I was in the Navy. I just kind of happened into the job, but really enjoyed myself, really loved what I did. Was able to connect with everyone who was first reporting to the unit or in travel to the unit. So I'm a people person, so I was able to be in contact with pretty much everybody on base. And that was part of why in 2009, when I kind of did a career switch, I was working in sales and benefits. And when the bottom of the market hit, I said, well, I got to go get a job that pays. So what am I going to do? And I remember the feeling that I had of service when I was in the military. And even though I wasn't ever out to sea, or I didn't ever, sit behind the end of a gun, I was definitely somebody who made a difference in their day. And I wanted to be able to do that again. So I started doing my research and connecting with different HR professionals in the area and asking them, okay, how do you get in and what do you do? I started my master's and then began healthcare human resources in 2010 with as an HR assistant. So that's how I began. An HR director took a chance on me. She saw that I had the personnel experience, and so I quickly promoted up and eventually promoted to a business partner, which was still very generalist model, but working through that. When I graduated grad school, I switched some companies and positions to an organizational development manager, which was more in line with what my master's is in. And then I had switched back into healthcare because I was asked to build an HR department from scratch. The company had never created HR, and they needed somebody who knew how to create HR. And so I stepped into that position. And then I segued to another HR business partner position in Maryland, and that's how I landed in Maryland. And I've worked as a business partner traveling. Traveling was a lot of fun, and helped build another HR department for a physician management group. And now I'm here. I'm with Lorien Health Services. I just joined in February and have been helping not necessarily build, but reconstruct the HR modeling, and am working with 13 very, very competent professionals who are my teammates in all of the different buildings and business lines that Lorien provides.
Wow. Very, very diverse background. So you originally got in, by the way, thank you for your service in the Navy. We all appreciate that. But you got into HR in the Navy.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I would imagine so.
I really enjoyed it.
I have a friend who was in HR in the Air Force, and he's a great guy. Similar to you, he had a lot to do with people coming into the base, and he was stationed in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which is,
Oh, darn.
I know that's what he says. He never left the States, and he never held a gun, but he said he protected the Myrtle Beach coastline from all the Canadians invading. He did. But that's a great background. Very diverse and very progressive. That's good stuff. So other than, you mentioned your service that you like to serve, I call that your spirit of service. Everybody, I believe, in human resources that is successful has this just inner desire to help other people. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. What is it other than that has you found so interesting in HR that you continue to pursue your career in that?
I love the fact that HR is something that takes the business and the person and combines the two. And when you maintain a business savvy and also legal savvy and your personal leadership development and combine them together, the HR role is fascinating. I don't have to just crunch numbers. I get to take those numbers and turn them into a bottom line argument that positively impacts the day-to-day life of our caregivers. And that is something that has always driven me, and I feel satisfied and passionate about it.
It's a lot of people don't realize the responsibility that is inherent to a HR professional. I mean, I call it spillover or crossover. What you do that affects them and their work life spills over or crosses over to home as well.
Right.
And the more people that you have in your network of folks that are not under you, but people that you're responsible for providing services to, it's enormous. I mean, a lot of people don't think about it, but HR can make you or break you. And
It really can.
yeah, it
really can.
People don't understand the responsibility. And, you know, Mary and I had a chat yesterday prior to this call, and I was telling her that my mother was in human resources back when it wasn't even human resources. They just, did filing, basically. They kept employee records and that type of thing. And it wasn't anything what it's like now, being business partners. And I love the way you put that, combining the business and the person together. That is such a great way to look at it, because that's what you do.
And that's exactly it. When I talk to my leaders, I let them know, based off of different studies and research, you're going to have at least 40% of your population leave in the next 2 years. But that means that 60% are staying.
Right.
How happy are they? How
Right.
engaged are they? Because happiness doesn't always mean engaged and driven and meeting the mission and connected to the reasons why, the company reasons why.
Right.
So if you're not engaging that 60%, you're still losing money.
Exactly.
And it makes their jobs harder.
Right. And that 60%, you can increase that if there's always going to be people that leave. You can't stop that. Spouses with the primary job move across the country, or life changes, everything. There's always going to be some folks that leave your organization. Hopefully those folks leave on a good note, but you can always decrease the number of people that, I call them the people that are there for a paycheck only.
Right.
They're not bad people. Sometimes they're in the wrong place, but other times they're in the right place, but they just don't get what they need. So I love the way you look at that. Tell us what you would consider to be one of your greatest accomplishments in HR as of today.
Well, I don't know if there's ever one great accomplishment. every time I get involved in writing a policy or a procedure, helping somebody figure something out so that it positively impacts the organization. I can tell you my favorite story from the Navy, and that's when I knew one of the things in HR is you really need to understand all of the policies, the organizational policies, and then the legal practices, because I was able to help a young sailor's wife. He was in a submarine underneath the water. This is in the time and the era, and I'm dating myself, that was before cell phones being in everybody's back pocket or email account even. And a young lady came in with a baby on her hip and said, I haven't gotten a paycheck. My husband's direct deposit didn't go in. What happened? And of course, I can't tell her what happened because that's his personal pay information. But because I'd done my research, I was able to find a way to get her enough money to the point in time where he was able to return to shore and be able to fix what had happened, because there was an error in his pay. And knowing that she was walking away and she wasn't going to have to worry about how she fed herself and her baby, that has been the one moment that has stuck with me my entire life and is my driving factor, because every single day there's a person like that in our organization, and how do we make sure that we take care of them?
Right. That's awesome. There's the perfect example of going outside of the company, outside of the organization, and how you affect them. That's, yeah. And there's situations like similar to that or exactly like that on a daily basis, just about everywhere you go. So
Yes.
That's awesome. Tell us what you do to help your employees grow.
Well, we offer education. Obviously, the level of employment that we have in our organization, as far as education backgrounds, is a broad spectrum. So we do offer the individualized education programs. I'm working with some of my HR directors to create computer training programs so that our employees that are not computer savvy can really start to capitalize on the ease and flexibility of having electronic information and electronic education. For my HR director team, I work with them monthly. We break down an HR concept and we go through it and make sure that they have an understanding of all of the policies and laws that are impacting, and then of course just general dialogue and one-on-one conversations when I'm working on development with leadership.
Wow. Development is so important. And we have seen it on our side become more requested over the last probably 5, maybe 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
When we first started doing engagement surveys, there wasn't a big demand for it. There wasn't a lot of people screaming out saying, we want development, we want this, we want that. But now, I think probably because of what you mentioned, digital learning, it's so easy for anybody to learn how to do anything, and it's readily available. And one of my big pet peeves is cross-training. If you've got someone in your organization that you can teach them how to do another job within the same, building at least, how does that not benefit everybody?
Right.
Because employee A can do employee B job and employee A's job. Employee B calls off. You got one person that, can help, take up the slack, as we used to say.
Well, way back in the military, it comes as 2 is 1, 1 is none.
Exactly.
You always have to have somebody who knows how to do this job. And sometimes it takes finessing so that there's not a perception that the person A is going to be replaced in any way, shape, or form. So there's no possessive or territorial behaviors. But it also means that the person B who's learning it is able to actively engage with what they've learned frequently. And it really does help impact retention when somebody feels like they're being valued and are adding value to an organization, and or feel like their career is progressing, so that they're not just stuck. We have a lot of clinicians in our organization. That's our largest body of employees, and that's always been my largest body employee. And so one of the things that I've, in each organization that I've worked in, is developing floor nurses for that next level by allowing them to be part of the interviewing process and teaching them how to properly interview and what a behavioral-based interview is, and have them work with me on developing the questions. That sense of value that they get from having a say in who their future coworker is going to be gives them that buy-in from the beginning, and also helps with their feeling that they're not just somebody who's coming in and punching the clock.
We all want to belong to something.
Right. And feel value.
And yeah, exactly. We want to know. We want to know that we've made it. Here we go to work at least 5 days a week, usually 40 hours, sometimes more, a lot of times more. But we go there and we spend as much time at work as we do at home, and sometimes more at work than we do at home. We need to feel like what we're doing is contributing, and that contribution is recognized. And if it's not, that just causes problems, or at least that's what
At least a dissatisfaction, and at least a disengagement.
Yeah, I agree. So you kind of already answered this question, but I'll ask you to see if you might have another one. Tell us about a time when you helped an employee overcome a challenge.
Well, every employee has challenges, right? My favorite story, though, has to deal with the leadership challenge. We had a leader who was truly passionate about making sure that the day-to-day was taken care of. He wasn't a bad person, but he was perceived as a micromanager, and he was experiencing extreme turnover because of this. So I went in and I kind of did a 360 analysis with him, and I walked through the feedback that was coming from his employees. And I was able to develop a strong enough relationship with him so that I could be frank with him and kind of walk through and let him know that a lot of his activities, although he was just trying to make sure things were getting done, were causing barriers versus removing them. And so I walked through developing with him an action plan and KPIs for his direct reports. And then he understood how to create that, but not checking in with them every single day to see if it was done. So if you give them a goal and deadline of Thursday, check in with them Wednesday night, remind them that their meeting is due, but then don't check in with them Monday, Tuesday. And it seems so simple and intuitive to everyone, but instead he was just trying to make sure it got done because of the pressure that he was experiencing, but then also, the need to make sure that patients were taken care of. And I had to kind of pull him back a little bit. And it was really hard for him to make that adjustment, but he did. And when he did, he started to experience better reactions from his employees. It took a while, because it takes a very long while to overcome something like that. Right. But he was seeing positive impact on his turnover, positive impact on productivity. So that's one of the ones that I do like to talk about.
So, Mary, let me ask you this. You said you developed a relationship with him, a good enough relationship that you could kind of direct him and maybe give him some guidance, even though he was a leader in the organization. Mm-hmm. Did you have a relationship with him before that, or did you need to develop it afterwards, after it was brought to your attention?
I was new to the organization. And so I was developing relationships with all of that general leadership,
Right.
uh, staffing, if you will. And then I met him a couple of times. This problem had presented itself. And so as I was helping him work through it, I also had to make sure that connection was happening and trust was being built, and he understood where I was coming from, and he knew my locus was to make sure that he was uh, living his best servant leadership model, and not to just try and tell him what to do, or I didn't have an agenda. So he had to really believe that was the case. And there was a leap of faith that he had to make as well. And I was thankful that he did. I did have the support of his leadership, which kind of helps, but
A little bit.
yes, that was a little bit.
Yeah. That's difficult. That's not an easy task.
It's not.
Not at
Sometimes
all.
what we have to do is the crucial conversations that we have to have are tough. They're tough.
You've got to have them, though. You have to have those conversations. Otherwise, it gets worse.
Otherwise it gets worse. You turn into a yes man culture.
Yeah.
And there's no idea generation, and you stagnate, you die. So this is one of the,
That's great.
firm belief.
I'm currently working with someone who has a very similar situation and almost identical, as a matter of fact. And but instead of one person in leadership, it's multiple people in leadership.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's even more difficult, and it's just like, where do you get that? No, some of the things they're like micromanaging or being perceived as a micromanager is very common, I think, and it roots to what you said. It's the pressure. I mean, they're under pressure to get things done, and that's the only way they know to fulfill or satisfy their anxieties is if it's going to get done, is just to stay on top of it.
Right.
So. Okay. Tell us what type of training that you feel is the most important for your employees.
So for my direct HR directors, I think having a high business acumen is really important for them. And then staying engaged with the political and legal changes that are happening in our country and in every state. Being able to look around the corner is very important. And then knowing how to have the language that ties in that bottom line. Sometimes that is how I've been able to win over a CEO or a CFO with my plan, is being able to provide the direct proof of what their potential return on investment is going to be. So having that savvy is really important for every HR director. Hopefully getting them into business classes. There's always the SHRM HR business training courses that I really do like. I just recently took one just to brush up my metrics and HR analytics. So I think that is a huge benefit for our HR employees. Most business people want to know, do you speak their language? And if you speak their language, it's a quicker way of developing trust. It's not just about making people happy,
right,
or keeping things organized and compliant. It's about the holistic, the big picture approach, which means including business.
Yep, exactly. If you don't know, I love the fact that you said in other states too, because some people, again, we go back to the responsibility. Good gracious, if you've got units in multiple states and you have to know the legal ramifications of, well,
Yep.
I'm in this state. Well, it's not the same over there. It's different.
Correct.
And if you don't know that, you can lead people down the wrong road quickly.
I worked for a national organization, and it sometimes breaks down to where the county is.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes. So some of the pay laws relate to just the county. And so you have to be able to meet those requirements. If you are in government contracting and you have a Davis-Bacon contract or Service Contract Act contract in California, it doesn't matter if the other contracts that you have in Montgomery County aren't DBA or SCA contracts. You have to pay them exactly the way that you would pay your DBA and SCA contract. So being able to know that is really important.
Yeah. Gracious.
And then, of course, California is its own country.
Exactly.
In everything.
Yes. Sometimes referred to as the Republic of California.
I have a girlfriend who's an HR director for San Diego State University, and yeah, we can commiserate.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. What do you think makes an employee outrageously awesome?
I think an employee who has a high level of emotional and social intelligence. Somebody who seeks feedback, and even if it stings a little bit, knows how to turn that into action. There's always a nugget of truth. There's always a part of what you're hearing that you can turn into an adaptive change. And being able to hear it with grace and not get defensive and just listen to what somebody is saying. Learn to identify what they're thinking or what you're hearing from them that they're feeling, or the information that you're receiving, being able to brief that back without getting defensive and to say, teach me what I can do better. You may walk away from that not changing anything except for that relationship, because that relationship is going to be positively impacted by the fact that you were gracious about hearing the feedback. And when you seek feedback, it typically comes to you in a very positive way. And the more adaptive you are, the more people look to you for, new businesses, new projects. They know that if they're going to get something done, this person can be trusted to hear feedback without getting defensive.
Right.
I don't have to tiptoe around this person. So in everything we do, I think the high emotional intelligence and social intelligence, being able to know yourself and also be able to read the room effectively.
It's difficult. I mean,
it is, and it's not taught in schools.
I struggle with it at times when my wife wants to give me constructive feedback.
Well, I'm guilty there too.
But you're right. That's what a feather in your cap, if you will, or an attribute that someone can take criticism or constructive feedback or advice and not get defensive if it's negative.
And learn how to turn a piece of it into something, right? You don't have to take exactly what somebody's saying for, as if it is coming from, the golden cup, but it's definitely something where you can take a piece of that information and hear what can you do.
Right. Exactly. Cool. One more question. I know you're busy, so we'll let you get out of here as quick as possible. This one's really not for me. This one is for someone who's listening that may be new in HR or considering getting into HR. What words of advice would you give them so that they could be more successful?
If you're like me and you're doing a career switch, be willing to step backwards. because coming in, I didn't realize how different, even from military HR to civilian HR, I didn't realize how different my perception of what HR did and the reality of what HR is, how dramatically different that was. And being able to step back and be an HR assistant gave me time to really start to make that shift. It was a pay cut, but that was something that I had to plan on if I wanted to have a career in human resources. I was open to learning your HR fundamentals all the way back to how do you manage an employee file and what goes in and out, right?
Right.
And also find a mentor. Find somebody who either is in your chain of leadership or is somebody who is part of one of your local SHRM chapters you know and trust can be the person to brief back ideas or thoughts on. And I've mentored a couple of individuals, and I've been mentored by some really phenomenal people. I still have them as my mentor. I still reach out and say, what do you think about this idea or that? I'm thinking about doing something or a career move. Do you think it's a good idea? And then, up to and including, should I get my SPHR or my SHRM SCP? And I ended up getting both. I was grandfathered in, thankfully, but I focused on the SPHR and I passed it. So having somebody who can help you through that is really important. Somebody who's experienced and can help navigate.
That's great advice. Mentors are awesome. If you can find a mentor that's already been there, done that successfully.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything better. I was fortunate in my hospitality career right off the bat to land in a position that had multiple people, one in general, but several others that were extremely successful and just said, they taught me. They brought me under their wing. I didn't even have to ask. It was kind of like one of those, you get that feeling for someone and I really liked them and they liked me and they wanted to help me and I wanted to learn. So it was a great, great thing.
I have always enjoyed working with my mentors. And they've really helped sometimes ground me, but then also help me with my progression in my career.
Well, in most cases, they're senior. They've already been there. They've already done it, and they know what works, what doesn't work. It just, again, it's one of those things that just kind of makes sense. And, again, I'm not trying to hold you up, but we go back in time. You go back into as probably not as far away as maybe the 50s or 60s. Everybody was mentored through apprenticeships and that type of thing. I mean, you got out of school and you wanted to get a job as an electrician. You didn't get a job as an electrician. You got a job as an electrician apprentice. And you walked around with the electrician all day long until you learned what you needed to learn.
Right.
And I understand that probably doesn't work in all occupations, but we've kind of lost that apprenticeship or mentorship that we've had previously in our society. And so, which makes it even that much more valuable now if you can get one.
Yeah. And, look at those SHRM chapters because there is a very broad network of
huge
SHRM chapters of individuals who would be very happy to mentor and be your guide through your HR career.
No doubt. And they're everywhere. They're literally everywhere. I can't think of anywhere where they wouldn't be. Mary, thank you again very much for your time. We appreciate it so much. This was awesome. I mean,
thank you.
Completely awesome. Again, for those of you who are listening, Mary Varela-Spooner, Regional Human Resources Director at Lorien Health Services. She's on LinkedIn, so if you want to connect with her, reach out. I'm sure she'd be glad to have you as a connection, and who knows, maybe she'll mentor you.
Maybe.
I hope you guys have a great day. If you haven't subscribed, hit the button below, and we'll notify you when our next episode is published. Have a great day, and bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Please feel free to contact Randy with any questions about team building or employee engagement issues. Subscribe to this channel so you'll be notified when new episodes are published.